Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
Jamie Lammers, and welcome back to Music of the Mountains. This week, I have 3 guests lined up for you all, and they're all from John Shepherd and the Front Porch Posse, coming to you at the Jamestown Mercantile on March 10th, 2024, starting at 10 a.m. More details at the end of the podcast, but first guest. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. My name is John Shepherd. I'm a local musician around the Boulder area and been playing around for about 2 or 3 years now. We'll get into how it all came about, but I'm excited for the interview. I appreciate the opportunity, Jamie.
I hear you're performing at the Jamestown Mercantile very soon.
I am. I'm performing there twice. Got a gig coming up February 25th, another one on March 10th, and it's by far one of my favorite venues in the Front Range area, so I'm always looking forward to playing up there.
So how did you get started in music in the first place?
Well, I grew up listening to the then classics. I grew up on James Taylor and Cat Stevens and in that era, and always wanted to be able to play like they did. I didn't play much as a kid. I actually bought a guitar when I was in law school and started playing when I should have been studying, and it was just a good outlet for me, a creative outlet when I wasn't hitting the books. I went out to LA as a lawyer and was in and around the music business and just started hanging out in coffee shops and just became more and more interested in playing, and came back to Boulder in 94 and played a couple coffee shop gigs back then. And then life, wife, and job and all that stuff kind of derailed that passion. And it was recently, actually, I think it was during the lockdown, when I saw that the Samples, the Boulder band, was playing in Niwot, of all places. So I went racing down to see the Samples, and a young phenom vocalist named Rin Van was singing backup for the Samples. So I started talking to her, and she said, "Oh, you should open for me." And I said, "I haven't played out for 28 years. And she said, "Well, go home and practice." So as simple as that statement was, it literally changed my perspective on it. And lo and behold, I started practicing and opened for her a couple times, and then have been gigging around the Front Range for the last 2.5, 3 years. A lot of happenstance and serendipity and stuff. I always wanted to do it, but never took the time, or never had the time, maybe, or both, to really get involved. And now it's a big part of my creative side. I still work full time and have a lot of responsibilities in the corporate world, but I look forward to every gig and really enjoy performing.
How did you come up with the Front Porch Posse?
Well, I call it the Front Porch Posse because it changes from gig to gig. When I would play around, I'd meet people. And for me, it's all about community, Jamie. I mean, it really is. A lot of people say that. But for me, it's about being with people that I want to play with, meeting people that want to listen. So I would invite great guitarists or vocalists or percussionists from time to time. So depending on the gig and who's available, I assemble some great musicians and dear friends from around the area. So I just called it the Front Porch Posse for reasons not really sure, but it makes it all the more enjoyable when I'm playing with people that I want to be playing with.
Who were some artists that inspired you along the way?
Like I said earlier, I grew up on James Taylor and Cat Stevens and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and that crew. So back in the day, I'd literally take an album. I know a lot of your listeners won't understand what I'm talking about, but we take the needle and put it back to the beginning of the song and play it again and play it again. So those songs from that era, I'm talking the very late 60s and early 70s, were just seared into my musical synapses. And I've never looked back. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of new acoustic acts that have come forward that I cover from time to time. But at the end of the day, for me, it's all about the late 60s and early 70s acoustic artists. I think they're some of the best lyricists that ever lived, the Bob Dylan and the genre of true folk music. And that's really the fulcrum for my musical taste.
Do you guys play covers or originals or a mix of both?
Certainly a mix of both. Depending on the set length, I'll play 4 or 5 originals in any given set. Like any musician appreciates, you have to read the crowd and see what their vibe is. Most of my originals are more laid back, all the James Taylor and stuff. So if the crowd's a little more rowdy, you don't want to throw an original in at an inappropriate time. But I try to play a lot of original, again, depending on the crowd. I love to play small venues, Jamie. I started going up to Fort Collins and playing breweries and things like that. It's a completely different vibe, as I'm sure you know. They're louder. People are there for after work frivolity or whatever. So consequently, I prefer smaller venues that are quieter, and it gives me a chance to play originals or some kind of deep cut covers that people haven't heard, and hopefully they'll listen to the words and have an impact. You know, I think a good gig for me is when people come up and say, hey, I heard that, and I've literally had people come up crying and say, that song was for me, which is, in my mind, one of the ultimate rewards as a singer-songwriter when somebody comes up and truly not only relates to the lyrics, but is moved by them. So, you know, I'll throw some in depending on the gig.
And for you, is it still incredibly important for you to perform live?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm in a completely different position, Jamie, in terms of gigging. A lot of people are trying to, quote, make it in the music business. I have no desire to make it in the sense of financial or get an album. I'm not on really any of the social media platforms in terms of getting my songs out. It's all about live performance. I have gigs where there's families that bring their children and they'll come up and sing Puff the Magic Dragon with me, and it absolutely makes my day. I have 3 kids. I sang to them virtually every night of their lives until they got too old and didn't want me to play anymore. So maybe this is just a continuation of wanting to play to an audience that really wants to listen. So it is about live performance for me, for sure.
What do you hope that audience members take away from your show when they come and see you?
I think just that sense of having been moved, maybe, that might sound a little mawkish, but like I said, I'll have people come up after and say, wow, that verse you sang about relationships, or that verse you sang about this or that. And that's what I want them to take away. Just have heard even a sentence of a song. And sometimes they're not my songs. There's a lot of great songwriters out there. There's a Canadian artist, Donovan Woods, who's very popular and very poignant lyrics, and I cover some of his songs, and people come up and go, wow, I never thought about that. Or I remember when I was a kid. And that's what I want somebody to take away. And in the venues I play, the smaller coffee shops or the Merc, I'll hang around and talk to people for, sometimes an hour or two. And it starts out about a song lyric and it ends up talking about their life or some of their experiences. And that's the takeaway that I want them to have. And it's a takeaway for me too, frankly. I mean, it's a two-way street, no doubt.
Is there anything else in general you'd like to add?
Well, the website, it's johnshepardmusic.com. And that has a couple songs, but I have the Merc. I've kind of really limited my live gigs. So, I mean, I got started at the coffee shop in Niwot called Why Not Coffee, and I would go there all the time. And it was, again, kind of a community organic thing where I said, hey, I'd love to sit in here and play on a cold morning in the winter or whatever. And so now I have a resident gig there. I play the first, third, and fifth Sunday every week and have been for almost 2 years now. And Mary Jo and Chris and Sophia and Val, it's become a family. So I'd invite people to go to the website and look at the upcoming gigs. They're mostly in the coffee shops around. I think I went to the Merc the first time in 1976, Jamie. And now, this many years later, I go back up and I go, who'd have thought that after all these decades, I'd be back up here playing guitar? So it's more than just trying to find a gig. These are places where I've known them for a long time, known the people, and I'd invite people to come and see and get a sense of what I'm talking about. We become a community. A lot of the coffee shops, I know most of the people that come in, they know me, they invite friends, and it's starting to grow just very organically. So I invite people to come and see what I'm talking about. Also kind of fun, I think. I play with different people almost all the time. I mean, depending on the gig. So it's kind of never the same. Depending on who's playing with me, we'll play different sets, different genres of music, and they bring their friends, and so it's never the same. So I think that's also helpful when people come and want to be entertained. They're not hearing the same covers or the same originals over and over. I invite some of my players to play their originals, so it's fun. I think people would enjoy it if they come out. If you can encourage people to come out, not only listen to me, but there's a lot of great singer-songwriters out there. The more I get out and play, the more I meet and people come up and I hear their music. And I've had a lot of them come over to my house and we'll sit around and play and exchange and song swap. And there's so much talent around here. So I think people don't have to travel very far to see a lot of talent in all genres. That March 10th gig, I'm going to have Ren Van join me. She played last time when we were up at the Merc and she's phenomenal. So I really would encourage people to come out and hear her. It's a great gig when she joins. So that'd be a good great gig for people to come to.
Thank you so much to John for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. Now let's move on to the next guest. Do you mind introducing yourself real quick as well?
My name is Charles Gallant, and I am a local Boulder guitar player and musician. And in my day job, I'm a user experience designer, which is a fancy way of saying I do kind of design for apps and websites and all sorts of other stuff, too.
And you'll be performing very soon with John Shepard at the Jamestown Mercantile, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be up there the 25th. And it's not the first time we've played at the Jamestown Merc. It's going to be probably like my fourth or fifth session up there. John's been up there a lot more by himself. But, looking forward to it. There's one on the 25th and then another on March 10th at the Jamestown Merc as well. Daylight Savings Time Day.
So how did you become involved with the Front Porch Posse in the first place?
Well, I think the first best way to answer that is to sort of define the Front Porch Posse. I think that's kind of a name that John uses as kind of a loose collective of folks and friends that he invites to play with him, right? So I don't know if he uses that term when he just plays solo, but I can tell you that he's a very hardworking solo artist in his own right who often will ask people to accompany him. And some of those people, like myself, kind of turn into regulars, right? So I think when those regulars started to become more and more, John, being the humble guy that he is, occasionally throws out something other than just his name to play under in a way to be sort of kind to everybody involved and say, hey, this isn't just about me. It's about all of us doing this together. But it's an indirect answer to your question. In general, John's been playing around Colorado for a while now, for a number of years. And I met him maybe a year and a half ago and started sitting in with him on a fairly regular basis.
And how did you get into music in general?
That's a great question. Yeah, so basically, it's always been on the sidelines of my life as a hobby. I've spent a great deal of time just thinking about myself as a living room guitar player with an audience of zero. But I've always had so much fun with it. It's always just been a fun thing to do with friends, but mostly a meditative thing that I do just for myself. When I moved to Boulder, the pandemic hit. A lot of terrible things happened at once. My company went under due to coronavirus, and I just moved to Colorado for that job. And obviously all the lockdowns were pretty brutal. I went through a huge breakup, ended up breaking my ankle, and then I had a kidney stone. There was a bunch of really terrible things. It all paints this picture of a lot of stuff happening to me at once, right? I got hit with a number of tragedies, personal and professional. And I kind of decided, look, if I'm going to stay in Boulder, which I was determined to do, I got to get out there. I got to meet people. I got to try something. Let's do open mic night. So when the pandemic lifted and people started going back to work and people started going back out, I hit the open mic scene and met people who are now my closest and dearest friends. Excited musicians, hardworking people, creative people. And John Shepard was one of them. And that's kind of when I sort of realized, hey, getting up on stage and playing in front of people ain't that bad. I can kind of do this. And that's kind of how it all changed from a hobby into something I found myself doing almost every weekend.
Are there any people you've seen live or have performed with that have inspired you along the way?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've always been a huge fan of going to see live music and going to concerts. My older brother went to see Boulder in the 90s and would take me. I got to visit him when I was still a high school student. And so my first experiences in this town were basically getting together with all of him and his college friends as a much younger person and going out and seeing live bands. And watching all that was definitely intoxicating in every sense of the term. And it definitely got me excited about playing music in a very general sense and about the art of improvising and trying to get up there in a live environment, channel the butterflies towards something new and exciting. And yeah, like I said, when I moved to Boulder as an adult, much later, I got a chance to practice that on the stage of open mic night. And my influences at that point were all the people around me. Open mic is a scary thing. It's a lot of people taking risks and being very vulnerable, and there's something beautiful about that and inspiring about that, no matter what the skill level is. And so it was really through that scene that I decided that this was a noble pursuit.
Are there any artists that have inspired you along the way?
Oh, sure. I could list off hundreds. The biggest one has to be Fish and the work of Trey Anastasio specifically as a guitar player. Like I said, I love live music, and I think doing something live is far more interesting when you're not just playing the song exactly how it is on the album, or you don't just get the same canned performance every night. And the work that Fish did that made them so unique is that their band focused on improvising. And the songs are just like a loose framework around that improvisation. And that's why it's unique to every show and why you get people to travel to see them again and again and again. It's sort of the same reason why I like other jam bands like the Grateful Dead sort of fall into that category. But I got bit by the Fish bug pretty hard. Other rock influences were really, really big, most notably Led Zeppelin. I think, again, the fact that every one of those members of the band were just such a virtuoso at their given craft and their selected instrument or being a vocalist was just a huge inspiration. It's just amazing to see someone sing like Robert Plant, or see a video of somebody play the drums like John Bonham, or, and of course, Jimmy Page and all that. Right? Yeah, Fish and Zeppelin were the two big ones.
So how do you guys choose what music you're going to play for the Front Porch Posse?
So the way that works is that John is very much the boss. He selects the set list, will run the majority of the show, and I'm there as kind of accompaniment to him. What I get to do, though, is awesome. I get to basically improvise in the gaps and find ways to support John, but also get what I want to get out of it, which is to try to come up with a guitar solo on the spot and do something interesting with just a couple of bars. So it's very creatively fulfilling for me as well. One of the reasons why I hang out with John in the first place is he's a great guy. He's extremely nice, super generous. And one of the generous things he does with these gigs that he gets, in addition to not just calling it the John Shepherd Show starring John Shepherd, right? He calls it the Front Porch Posse. He'll give me a couple of songs to play within the set, right? And so for those, I have a choice. I really like to look out into the crowd and ask myself, okay, is this a farmer's market crowd where no one's paying attention and people are just walking by? Nobody came here for music. There just happens to be music. All right, maybe a fun, loud cover that's recognizable. It's going to be good. If it's a slow, quiet situation, or at least there's an attentive audience, I might risk an original song. They're usually softer and more delicate. And I say risk because they're much more of a risk. They're harder to make those work. And so perhaps a more concise answer to your question is I will look out into the room and see what feels like it's the right move.
Do you end up performing some of your own original material during the shows?
So yeah, overall with the whole band, John commands most of the set list. When he wants to take a break, he might say, hey, do you want to play 2 or 3 songs? And I'll play 2 or 3 songs and then he'll come back up. But for the most part, the original music that the Front Porch Posse perform are John's songs. He writes the music and the lyrics to them.
And I assume you've written originals as well.
Yeah, so like I said, when it is my window of time to play, like during the 2 or 3 songs that I'll sort of have the stage for, I'll play a couple of my own originals. I've written probably a half a dozen songs that I really like and feel comfortable playing in front of people. I do have a separate band that I play with that basically has more of me as a central creative force. I consider myself less accompaniment and more of an author of the music of my other band, and it's called Lost Bobcat, and that's mostly where I bring the originals out. But like I said, here and there, if it feels right for the room, I'll play an original during a Front Porch Posse show.
What do you love about the songwriting process in general?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I think the thing I like about it the most, and this is kind of a sideways answer to your question, is that it's one of the hardest things I can imagine a human doing. Full stop, right? You can approach it from lyrics. You can approach it from chords. You can approach it from a melody or just a rhythm. You can start with a template of another song and just make slight changes to it. Doing in all of that, this daunting set of potential starting points and trying to make something out of silence, out of nothing, is just amazing. I just love the challenge of it. And yeah, I mean, trying to find melodies, I suppose, would be a more direct answer to your question, is really, really interesting to me and a fun pursuit, right?
What are some of your favorite aspects about being able to perform live?
Yeah, so my favorite parts are the improvised sections, the guitar solos. Like I said, I think memorization is very important, and it is important for performance and for learning how to play songs and reciting them and remembering all the parts. But to me, the real magic is being able to improvise something on the spot that feels unique to the room and feels special for that moment in time and space with the audience. It feels a little bit more authentic. It's definitely scarier, and it definitely requires more of you as a musician to be able to come up with something on the spot. So that's really what my favorite part is.
And is there anything that you hope audience members will take away when they come and see you?
I think when you watch us play, you get a sense of the type of person that John is, which is that he's lived an amazing life. He's seen many things. He's lived from coast to coast across this country. He's well-traveled. He's met people from all walks of life. And when he sings about things, he means it. And I feel like if there's one thing the audience ought to feel, and I know I feel, is just the vibe that John gives off and how warm and awesome it is.
Is there anything else in general you'd like to add?
Sure. I'm trying to think. I think we've covered a good amount of stuff. I think the most important part, I think the thing that makes John unique is that, like I said, he's a great person. I'm kind of in a weird sort of way through this open mic scene. And as I don't want to say lead guitar player, but I'm the guy who takes the solos in the song. I get invited to play with a fair amount of folks. Not to sound arrogant or anything, but I have musical options, right? And I play with John because he's just a great guy. He's super generous. Whenever he invites you to sit in with the band, it's always, hey, I'm going to do this thing. I'm okay doing it if you can't make it. If you can't show up and your schedule doesn't align, it's okay. But if you came, it would be great. And if you can't, I'll never hold it against you. And every musician you meet tends to ask a little bit different of something from you, right? Some musicians are, oh, we got to practice 1,000 times a week. Or, oh my gosh, it has to to be my creative vision. We're going to be famous and this and that. John tends to approach things with no, we're going to be people first, and then we're just going to do this music thing also. And that's the best part about the guy. He's the type of guy who will do all the setup for you, so you won't have to help with anything. He'll tear it all down himself, and then he'll buy you dinner after the gig. That's how he rolls. He's just all around great dude.
And is there anything in general you would like to promote?
Well, I'm not sure what the context of the delivery is, but if it is appropriate to promote something, I mean, I do have a separate band called Lost Bobcat that you can find on Instagram under Lost Bobcat Band. That's our little handle. And I play almost every Wednesday night at a place called Vision Quest. That's the open mic that I keep talking about. It's just a great scene. I try to get out there as much as I can. Most of the time when I get out of Boulder, it's with John to go to Jamestown. But that's just the deal right now. I think if somebody had a venue that could support a couple of guys with Lost Bobcat, we could get up there. You never know. But at the moment, there's nothing on the calendar, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Charles, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. Final guest, do you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Ren Van. I am an 18-year-old musician in Boulder, Colorado.
For the record, I was so shocked that our current guest wasn't in her mid-20s that I had to stop and ask her directly if she meant she had been playing for 18 years or if she was 18 years old.
I am 18 years old. I've been playing for more than half my lifetime, which I guess isn't that much. But
And you are also joining John Shepard at the Jamestown Mercantile, aren't you?
I am indeed. That gig is at the Jamestown Mercantile, and it'll be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on March 10th.
So how did you first get involved with John and the Front Porch Posse?
So I met John, I want to say maybe 2 years ago or 3, maybe. I think it was during the pandemic or something. But I was singing backup with Al Laughlin, who's the keyboardist for the samples, and I was singing backup before his band Highway 50 outside the Niwot Tavern. And John is a big samples fan, and he went to go see them, or went to go see Al, and I was singing, and he introduced himself to my mom, and they were chatting, and I don't really remember the whole thing because I was young and I was just kind of focused on getting my French fries. And I'm sure John told you, he was like, I gathered the information that Ren's mom was Ren's mom because she was feeding her French fries from stage. Anyway, John introduced himself to me, and he was just really nice. He was like, I dabble a little bit in music. I haven't played in 20-something years. And I'm like, well, you can open for me. And he was like, well, I haven't played in so long. I told him to practice, and it seemed just so straightforward. I was like, okay, well, if you want to do it, just do it. Yeah, I just didn't think it was all that serious. It's like, come on, there's an answer to your question. It's an easy one here. I'm glad I was able to inspire him.
What do you remember about the Front Porch Posse once you started becoming involved?
Oh, well, as far as my recollection, the Front Porch Posse was kind of a thing, but John really just started, the more he was gigging, the more he met people and he invited them to play with him, and he's met some really cool people, and they ended up really vibing and becoming the Front Porch Posse. But I don't know, I think it happened because he was gigging more. I think I just went over to John's house one day for dinner or something. He invited my mom and I over, and he was like, I have a lot of guitars, I have a lot of music equipment, I love to talk, and we just played together, and he's a really cool guy, and we just really, really hit it off. And obviously him and my mom hit it off because they're dating now, but yeah, that's how it all happened. John is just, on a personal note, he's just an amazing guy, and he's been a really great father figure for me, and I love him to death.
So I'm getting the gist from John and Charles that you guys are sometimes able to sneak in your own material, but it's primarily John's material that is the highlight of this show.
Yeah, so you kind of nailed it right on the head. It's mostly just John's stuff, and occasionally Charlie or I will sneak in a few of our songs. But I like to do it where it's John's stuff because I have my own band, I have my own project, and they're really his gigs, and I'm there to support him, and I just love hanging out, and I love being with them, him and Charlie, and it's just a really fun hang, and very low pressure because everybody just has a good time. We all just have so much fun, and it doesn't even really matter if people are listening. But yeah, occasionally John will have me do 30 minutes of my solo set or something like that, or we cover Midnight in Harlem by the Tedeschi Trucks Band, and I play piano on that, and Charlie does guitar, and John does guitar and harmonies. But yeah, it's mostly John's music.
And how do you guys end up picking which songs will end up being performed in the show?
You know, I think that would be more of a John's call, honestly. I'm just kind of there to support and do whatever I can, and he ends up making the song calls. I mean, he'll have a set list that's just a good guideline, and then we'll rearrange the order and such, but it's usually his decision. I am the youngest, yeah. It's a very, very wide range of ages.
And how did you as an individual get started performing?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I do know, but I've always had the bug for it. I've always just loved it. And I guess I found out I could kind of sing, and I found a studio in Boulder called the Lesson Studio, and they do kid bands and they do private lessons and they do all sorts of stuff. They're really great. Everybody there is super nice. And I started taking piano lessons there and voice lessons there. And then I started in one of the kid rock bands, and it all just kind of went from there. And then I met some people and we played a few restaurants and coffee shops, and I guess the rest was history. And I've just met amazing people along the way.
What makes performing live in this group so special for you?
Well, I can say that, again, we have so much fun together, and John and I have a ton of inside jokes. We all hang out all the time. I don't know. John and I really get along, and we always have on-stage banter that can be fun to watch. And then one time, John and I were joking amongst ourselves, and Charlie was like, yeah, when you guys are done, we have a gig to get back to, so whenever you guys are ready. So it does get out of hand occasionally, but it's all part of the fun. It's just so much fun.
And what are some of your favorite parts about being able to perform live in general?
So I'm a very extroverted person, and I feed off of people's energy as my own, and seeing people's reactions to something that I've created or something that I'm performing is just so fulfilling for me. And I love it, and I love sharing music with people that people can relate to and listen to and enjoy. And when people come up to me after shows and they're like, your song really moved me, or this reminds me of this, or oh, your voice would be perfect for this song, it just means a lot to me. And there's so much personal connection to it that I just think is really special and amazing.
And is there anything that you hope audience members take away from the show when they come and see you guys?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. When it comes to the Front Porch Posse, I hope that they just enjoy. John plays a lot of older music, and the demographics that generally come to our shows are those of John's age group and maybe a little bit of Charlie's age group, although not nearly as much. And I just hope they enjoy what we have, and also John's originals. I don't think he gives himself enough credit because he's really an amazing writer, especially when it comes to lyrics. He has some originals that lyric-wise he's written so uniquely and wonderfully, and I hope people can take that and just personalize it to their own experience, because I think that's what music is all about. When you're listening to it and you can relate to it, I think that's really special. But I think that they could take away something personal like that from the shows, that would be ideal.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Honestly, no. We did cover a lot of ground very quickly at that. But yeah, I love it. It's so much fun, and it feels like family to me.
Thank you so much, Ren, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. And thank you once again to John, Charles, and Ren for joining us for this very special edition of Music in the Mountains. You can see John Shepherd and the Front Porch Posse perform at the Jamestown Mercantile, that's 108 Main Street in Jamestown, on Sunday, March 10th, 2024, starting at 10 a.m. And now, for this week's Music Mention. Head to Busey Brews, located at 70 East 1st Street in Netherland on Sunday, March 3rd at 2 p.m. to see Sean Kinane performing live. Head to the Diner Bar Ned, located at 121 North Jefferson Street in Netherland on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. for a Damn Jam Open Jam Night, on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. for a karaoke night, on Fridays at 9 p.m. for a DJ Friday, and on Sundays at 6 p.m. for an open mic night. Head to Eldora Mountain Resort, located at 2861 Eldora Ski Road in Netherland on Saturday, March 2nd at 9 a.m. to see the Subaru Winterfest the first day, and then head for the second day on Sunday, March 3rd, starting at 9 a.m. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown on Wednesday, March 6th at 5 p.m. to see an open mic night, and on Saturday, March 7th at 7 p.m. to see Charlie Scott and Emma of Bread and Roses performing live. Head to Knotted Root Brewing, located at 250 North Caribou Street in Netherland on Saturday, March 2nd at 5 p.m. to see the Benjamin Sproul Trio performing live. And finally, head to the Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Netherland on Saturday, March 2nd at 5 p.m. to see Reservoir Fog performing live. Did we miss you or your performance? Want to submit your music listing in the Peak to Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountain Ear.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.